What is up, Retro Maniacs? My name is Mike. His name is Joe. His name is EP, and we're here to talk about cards. Specifically, this week we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the Geoff Wilson interview recently with Ryan Hogue. What is his official title at PSA there?
President?
The head of PSA. Let's call him the head of PSA. Yeah. And we finally figured out how to properly say his name. We're sorry, Ryan, if you saw our videos. I'm sure he watched the podcast all the time and wonder why we kept saying his name wrong. But
please don't be the thumbs down guy. Please don't be that person.
He might be, and rightfully so, right?
Give him a pass. He gets a pass.
Let's just get into it. It's about an hour-long interview and a lot of good stuff to come out of it. I thought it was really interesting. We're going to kind of go point by point here. So first big story that came out of it, you probably saw it all over, that they set a goal that they would like to get all orders, including bulk orders, to 30 calendar days. It's a goal they set at the beginning of the year, and they're still working toward it. It's not something, some of the stories I've seen is like, oh, they're going to have 30. They're trying to do it. Like it's a goal they have. It's not something they're saying, okay, starting June 1st, everything's going to be no more than 30 days. It's not that way, but they're going to try to get there. Whether they do or not, who knows?
Boys, write it down. I throw one out every couple of weeks. If wishing and wants were candy and nuts, then we'd all have a great Christmas, right? Like,
wow.
Put that one on a shirt. Goal is 30 calendar days.
With a list of all of them.
All right. We need a full, like a road trip list for a band or something on the back of the shirt. So yeah, goal is 30 days. It's not going to be 30. Everyone calm down. Like, everyone went with this. All of the content creators who think they're smarter than everyone else went. Did you hear PSA announce 30 calendar days? They didn't. They're going to try. It is what it is. What's another one of my expressions? Wish in one hand, shit in the other. See what one fills up faster. I mean, it's not going to be 30 days. The fact that it's 30 business days, he said 45 business days for bulk. That's still pretty good for bulk. Like, and they're exceeding that. If I'm them, I just keep it at what you have it. And
he said 30 calendar days.
Right. He said 30 calendar days for that.
Quite a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. That's 20 business days ish. So yeah, if I was them, I would just set it where it's at and then exceed people's expectations. Because once you say 30 calendar days, people are going to expect it there in 30 calendar days. If you say 45 business days and it gets there in 30 business days, you think PSA is the greatest thing since sliced bread because they exceeded your expectations.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's ambitious. I applaud them for that. And I really hope that they can get to that level. But Joe's explanation probably would be the smarter way to do it. That said, I really think with their acquisition of SGC, and again, I realize that they are separate, but I really feel like there's a lot of the amount of money they're getting from all these different things and everything. They can definitely expand and do some stuff. And they've already expanded to New Jersey. So I feel like it's not over ambitious to say 30 calendar days.
Well, I've set a goal for the channel this year. I want to get to 1 million subscribers. So that is our goal.
EP, not only, I mean, I'm not even laughing because it's going to happen, EP. Don't put that evil on us.
The goal that we're working
for. Oh, yeah, I guess a couple have.
Not just New Jersey, EP, but also Tokyo. And they talk about the Tokyo office quite a bit. 90% of it is TCG. How wild is that? I mean, so the Tokyo office is up and running for people like Dan the Card Man to send stuff in, instead of having to send it here. The one other point about turnaround times I wanted to make is you can totally tell Geoff Wilson is not a card collector. He's more of a card seller, because he was like, I don't understand why you would do that. Why wouldn't you keep it where it's at? And then that way people will pay to get the express, even though the card's not worth sending express. And I'm like, I wrote down, Geoff shocked PSA wouldn't try to milk collectors. Like, he's literally like, why wouldn't you try and milk them for everything they're worth? There are some people, EP, who can't wait, and they are willing to pay more money to have it go through express or one of the higher tiers above bulk to get it back quicker. There are people like that. So Geoff Wilson, very confused why PSA not trying to screw people over.
They're not sending 2013 tops base Manny Machado cards in, though. Like I said.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be.
Okay, some of the next points. They also said he talked about them using the specials to control the volume that's coming in. That's something that we've talked about on podcasts quite a bit. Not really groundbreaking news, but when Geoff asked him about a price increase, he kind of went all around it. He was explaining about how much value that PSA has added. He said they haven't had a price increase for quite a while, which is true.
For the Collectors Club.
For the Collectors Club. Yes, I'm sorry. Need to be specific. The raise from $100 to $150 a year for that. And he was talking about the added value. He went over things like how the PSA magazine is better quality, how the trading card game magazine is out and stuff like that. He did get around to the fact that they do offer some lower pricing, which that is really, they already do that at 100. So I don't know, but I mean, their business, they're the show in town. He can't say that, but I thought his answer was kind of BS. It's just kind of well, we haven't raised it in a little while, but we can, because what are you going to do? That's how I feel about it. I don't know about you guys.
So the magazine cracked me up. He's like, I already see some of these selling on eBay for a couple $100. No, you don't. He did mention that they are offering breaking credit with Fanatics Live if you are a Collectors Club member at $150. That's gross. It's like, oh, hey, we're going to give you this again. We're going to give you that taste of cocaine for free, and then once you run out, if you get a nice high from it, you're going to have to buy some more supply. So I love how the synergy of these different gross large companies are working together to really, really get people addicted to chasing breaks. And then we talked about this a couple of years ago, Mike. I think you were the one who thought at some point, and I don't think we really disagree with you, that eventually they would get down to like $10 or $12. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think they're just going to use the specials. They're gonna try and he used the phrase turn the faucet on and off on certain types of cards. If the TCG people are too backed up, we'll turn that special off, and then we'll turn on the faucet for football special or something like that. Smart business, but again, I think people would, instead of specials, I think people would much rather have $10 to $12 as the just price for everything. So yeah, that $150, I'm not going to be sending my PSA magazines to CGC to get slapped anytime soon, in case people were curious.
You could have all mine that I haven't even opened from the package it was sent in.
I feel like we kind of, I'm not sure about Joe 100%, but I know, Mike, we all learned about this back in the 90s when we played Roller Coaster Tycoon, right?
Oh, I played Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Did you? Okay. Well, you understand that when you want to really make money, it's the charging people to get in the door. Like you can have a good prices or whatever, that sort of stuff. So I totally, with all those, the way I didn't watch the interview myself, but with all the way you guys described him talking about the value and all that sort of stuff, I kept saying, "Oh God, here it comes," because they're going to raise the price. Like they're like, I wouldn't be surprised if they raise the price again sometime soon to be a member. Yeah. While they keep the other prices the same and use those to.
But you'll get more breaking credit, EP. I guarantee you, if they raise the price again, they'll just make it breaking credit.
Right. We're going to $300, but you get $500 of breaking credit at Fanatics, right? Like something crazy like that. So, well, or 50. But yeah, I feel like so. I mean, I feel like that is that they're gonna maybe they're. I'm not sure how much money they make off of subscriptions versus submissions. But I'm guessing submissions is probably still a significant amount. But I feel like they're going to try to make more money off of the people signing up to the subscriptions or
the membership whatever. Is all gravy on top of that. This will make you excited, EP. They talked about collaborating with Fanatics and wanting to do more with them in the future, and say that they talk all the time, and are also hopeful that Topps will get them their checklists and pictures of the different parallels and stuff, so they can identify the umpteen million different parallels they're throwing out there. But talk all the time. There you go. You can root for PSA now because you're a Fanatics fanboy. And if Fanatics is friends with PSA, by default, you love PSA too, right?
How are I'll get to that in a second here. How are these companies not already sending the images of all the parallels and stuff to these companies? Like how
Good work.
how is this not already happening? Like, is this actually a
Yeah.
big deal?
No,
Like,
it doesn't happen. That is kind of
that's
surprising.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
They don't even always get them the checklist by the sounds of it. So,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
crazy.
and
Like,
you know this by if you rip something super new and you go into submit it, maybe that day, maybe that week, it's not uploaded in their database yet. You
Yeah.
have to type out what the card is.
that's
And
insane.
then it eventually goes to their research and ID to make sure that you're not trying to pull something. Like they have to dig into it. So yeah, that's not, I mean, it's ridiculous that they don't do it already, but at least they're going to start working on it. They did also mention like your massive hits with like specific patches. They're like, we should get pictures of that stuff too.
Yeah,
Right
I
out of the
guarantee you
gate.
they have them. I guarantee you they create when they have to print them. I guarantee you it creates an image of that
Yeah.
stuff. Like I guarantee you there's an image of that created when they print them. Like that, it just blows my mind.
So you don't get
That's not
another LeBron exquisite
with a
situation
different
where
patch.
people are
Right.
switching out patches. Like if PSA and Beckett and all of them had images of the LeBron exquisite card,
Yeah.
all is there 23 of them or whatever it is. Like if they had the images of those to see, oh wait, this should match with this patch, not that patch, we would have been saved a lot of stress in the hobby
Right.
over people
Right.
swapping shit like that out.
All right. Next point were upcharges. Geoff asked him a little bit about the upcharges. I don't know. I mean, what are you going to say? Like, this is how they do it, and this is how they're going to keep doing it. But he was talking about Ryan Hogue, being the he, was talking about the how they guarantee the card forever. So, like he said, the main thing that they get claims on are cards that are actually overgraded, which is interesting to me, and when they grade fake cards. So his reasoning was part of the upcharge is basically Geoff was the one threw out there, like kind of like an insurance for the card, which I feel like the number of cards he did say they do get quite a few claims that they have to pay out because he has to authorize them, but I feel like the amount of money they make in upcharges is way more than whatever they're paying out in any kind of a guarantee thing. So I think it was a nice corporate speak answer, but yeah, they're a company that likes to make money, and they've found a way to make people think, well, I have to pay more for this to be graded because it's worth more, but it's worth more. So why would I be mad about that? Like, they're really kind of brilliant in the psychology of that, because you shouldn't be charging people more. You're not doing anything more for it, but people are okay with it. I see that all the time on Twitter. Well, I'm happy when I get an upcharge. That means I got a card that's worth a lot of money. It's like, wouldn't you be happier if you got the card that was worth a lot of money without the upcharge? But I'm not going to argue with people. So yeah, but I'm sure you guys probably agree he was a little wishy-washy with that answer.
Well, the insurance thing, it's like, oh, we have to pay insurance and we write checks all the time, like making it sound like it was this big thing. Insurance companies are still in business for a reason. Like they get more in premiums and memberships paid to them than they're paying out in claims. That's kind of how it works. So yeah, it was a bullshit answer. And I think he was like, Geoff almost gave him an out when he said, oh, so it's like an insurance. He was like, oh, yeah. It's kind of like that. I'm like,
it's really not like
he
that.
was not going to say that at all. But, and you made the point before we were on the pod mic that, it's almost like we're paying the insurance as people submitting in bulk that get upcharged for the screw ups of those exquisite LeBron Jameses that were deemed fake or swapped out or whatever. So it's the little people paying for the big cards. Or you can look at it from the other perspective. It's like, oh, all the fake cards they might have graded 20 years ago, we're now paying for the sins of the past a little bit. So like we are paying for the sins of the past. PSA is not paying for the sins of the past. So yeah, it was a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with Joe there. Again, I haven't watched this, so I can't really speak to the actual conversation. But the psychology of it is, I think I never really thought about that myself. They've been doing the upcharge thing. I don't know when that started, but that they've been doing that for as long as I know and I can remember. But I feel like the psychology of it, I never really thought about that. Because I myself, I would think the same thing. It's like, oh well, they're upcharging me, but at least I know that's it's a higher end card than I expected, so I'm okay with that. And I shouldn't be, as we said.
Yeah.
Remember when you got upcharged in your big order, Mike, and we were sitting around going, "What could it have
You're
been?
excited,
What could
yeah.
it have been?"
Yeah.
And we were excited. It turned out to be, worth it. But again, you spent an extra $100 or whatever on that card. Wouldn't it have been nice if that $100 was
exactly? I would have been more happy if I didn't have to pay more for that.
Like, I don't think the grader like walked it over on a pillow to the people over at the encapsulation thing and gave it a chef's kiss before it got put in. Like, he did the same thing that he would have done with a $30 card as he would have done with a $3,000 card.
Okay, moving on. He did mention that there would be no radical price changes and use the specials to control pricing on different cards. But in the matter of consistency, this was pretty interesting. That they let's see, the cards are graded, seen by at least 2 graders, some of them with 3. They said the newer graders are working as an apprentice for a while, but like every card is seen by at least 2 different sets of eyes. They go back and check the grading data. So they'll take a card, look at the pop report. If 75% of those are gem mint 10s, if they have a grader who's grading 50% on that, they're going to look at it and try to retrain him to figure out why he's grading it harder or if they're grading it looser. So that is something was kind of interesting. I never would have thought of. And the one thing I take out of the consistency is, though, out of Ryan Hogue's mouth said, we are an opinion-based service. We've talked about it I don't know how many times on the pod about that's what grading companies are. People kind of lose track of the fact that like this isn't a be all end all. These people are not some kind of mages that know the way of the grading of the card. They're giving you an opinion, and right out of his mouth, they are an opinion based service. So, sometimes opinions are going to differ, right, Joe? We differ sometimes.
I put in quotes. The only thing I quoted was, watch the pod. The only thing I put in quotes is opinion-based service. I mean, only some like pecker would think that it's objective. Some peckerhead might think it's objective, but it is a subjective service. It will be. It always has been. Even the technology assistants they have, they talk more about how even after that, a computer can't determine eye appeal. I think that was a really good point that he made. If you have a 52 mantle and, the computer says that, it should be a 5, but when you look at the card and it's like, it's perfectly centered, but there's some corner wear, but the eye appeal is just so much higher. You can bump it up to a 5.5 or a 6. The computer is never going to be able to figure that out. Again, you can't take something like this and just make it an absolutely 100% objective thing, because some people are going to look at certain aspects of a card differently than other people. So of course it's a subjective based grading. To think otherwise is silly.
I agree 100%. And that's, I think we've talked about this before. Like none of us would want a completely AI or computer graded card, right? Like that, there's something about like the visual appeal of a card. It needs to be an important part of any type of grading. I always wondered if when we send a card in and it comes back a 6 and then we crack it out and send it back in, or if we complain about it and send it back in for a regrade, if another grader sees it then, or if there's a way to do that. And I wonder if the whole thing with having a grader looking at something and saying, you're rating this card like always gets a 10 at 75% and you're getting it at 50%. I wonder if that is something where they, like, if a card comes back to them, they say, we need to give this to another grader. I wonder how often that happens. They do such a volume. I just wonder if there's a way for them to be able to do that, or if they do that sort of thing, And
they wouldn't know that the card was already graded, so it's just random. But like with as many graders as you have, it's like probably a very
The
small
odds of
percentage
someone actually
that
getting the
same
same
person
card,
getting
yeah.
it, but
Right.
that'd be great if they could get the same grader to do it again. Though, might keep people from cracking it. They did talk a little bit about that. He talked a little bit about the tech assisted. Is they don't ever see a day, like you kind of brought this up a little bit about using AI, but they use AI to help them find counterfeit cards and stuff. And they actually, one of the things I didn't know is they're using the computer on the image on a computer for the graders, and it gives them the centering on it. So the grader doesn't have to take a centering tool anymore and determine the centering. They put the image in and it gives them what the percentages are on the border. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that don't use computers or AI at all, because I think for some things like that, and like there's probably a number of things that you can look at and have that be a very beneficial part and speed up the grading process. If they want to get to the 30-day time, like that's definitely something you want to do. But I just meant in the end, like, I also want to have a set of human eyes looking at it as well.
In terms of the centering thing, I think it was EP before the show when we were talking about this a little bit. You know, you wonder, did the computer get laid the night before that he looked at the centering of the Wembanyama or the Hogan or the Andre the Giant or whatever? Like, if they're using computer assist on the centering, is that computer drunk? Like, do we have to have an intervention with that computer for the drug use? Like,
Malware on it.
Maybe
Right?
there's a code in there for some variance, just a little bit of variance. And
like
that grader clicked the link in the attachment on an email the night before.
I'm still gonna say the computer got laid the night before because I think that's funnier. But the one point you made during the pod, I don't want to gloss over it before we move on. You were talking about looking at cards on the podcast and how you came across, like, I think it was an Invisible Woman card, and you saw, look at it different lights and things like that. Apparently, he said all graders are in like a dark room, no natural light, and they have a halogen lamp. He goes, if you ever want to like look at your cards, like PSA looks at your cards, dark room, no windows, no doors, no natural light coming through with a halogen lamp. So EP, build that room and then you'll be the best at it. But put some walls up, do something about it.
Next topic was, he talked a little bit about the slab redesign. Geoff was talking about how he noticed the slabs are a little different, and apparently they're waterproof now. So I don't recommend taking them and dunking them into water. That's probably not what he's talking about, but they have better UV protection, and they are working some more on redesigning the slab. Basically, the big thing is so they can put more inserts in. They want to be able to do custom inserts for like odd shaped cards, smaller cards, die cut cards, that they can take the incoming photo that they take and make a 3D printed image of an insert and put that into the slab to keep your stuff from moving around, which is a great idea if they can actually get that to work.
So looking at their slabs and what they're doing. So PSA is now offering, or going to soon offer, graders notes. They have the ability to put like a 3D printed insert to, like you said, Mike, to keep the cards from moving around. And Jeff Wilson actually cracked a slab recently, and there was like an inner Mylar sleeve around the card. So they have grader notes. I feel like BGS had something similar. What are they called? Subgrades? Okay. An insert to keep a cards from sliding around. I think SGC does something very similar with an insert and an inner sleeve. Where have I seen cards in a slab with an inner sleeve before? I think maybe BGS too. So it feels like PSA has taken all the good stuff that these other grading companies did and just kind of claiming it as their own and something new and exciting for the hobby. So good on you, PSA. Good on you, I say.
Well, I'll take a little bit of a different tact. They are just taking what the other companies are doing and they're putting it all together into one piece. The industry leader is looking at what everybody else is doing great, saying, well, why would they pick them? Why would they pick them? Why would they pick them? Oh, well, why don't we just do that? And they are giving the customers what they want, giving all the customers what they want, if those are the things that they want, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're looking at it from a little more of a positive perspective,
you're looking at it more positively, and I'm looking at it more negatively. That doesn't track at all.
Who knew?
Yeah.
The next thing I found like really interesting. when they were talking about the PSA Vault, and Geoff didn't follow up on this, so I don't know what Ryan Hogue was talking about here, but when he was talking about the PSA Vault, he was saying about, he said when raw cards go to the PSA Vault. There was no clarification of what that meant. Geoff missed a real opportunity there to like continue to question him about it, but I don't know what that means. Like, or what does raw cards going to the PSA Vault mean? Did he misspeak?
If only there was a follow-up. If only there was just one follow-up question, like, what? Like, I think that's the only question you needed to ask there. What? And we would have known more
what?
information. Yeah.
So right now you can only send graded cards to the vault. Is that correct? Is that
because you send them, they go there after they're graded from PSA.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't even understand like what the process is. Like, you send your card to PSA, they grade it, and then you can send it to your vault if you want to. So like, I don't know where a raw card would even come into play here. I don't know if it's something.
Well, now with the authentication thing, now it's going to be authenticated by a PSA anyway. And I wonder if maybe
that's possible. That's actually a really good point, EP.
So I mean, if you're going to get authenticated anyway, you want to just put it in your vault, and you want to get it graded. Here's extra $5, extra $5. I feel like that could be potentially.
That's wow. If only you were interviewing him instead of Geoff Wilson. If literally anyone was interviewing him other than Geoff Wilson.
I was thinking that too. Like that's got to be a question that you. It almost feels like he said that to try to generate somebody to ask him a question about during the conversation to make it more conversational, to bring up something like that. It makes it seems like something that you bring up to kind of generate more of a conversation with the
You're a reporter, EP. You're a former reporter.
I'm an editor. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it would be nice if the reporter was versed in the topic they were asking questions about. I have a real hard time believing that Geoff Wilson is versed in cards at this point, but okay, I digress.
Okay, the big thing out of this was talking about card cleaning. Basically, the stuff that he came out and said before, they give the guarantee on their cards. They don't know, and nobody knows, what the impact of putting these different things on a card is. So, people have soaked vintage cards and done stuff before too, but like people who have done that, the flaws and stains have come back over time, and they're financially responsible with their guarantee. So if that card becomes overgraded because a flaw that was taken out using some kind of kit comes back, they're on the hook financially for it. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense to anybody who wants to be reasonable about the whole card cleaning and why it is altering thing and why they don't want to accept it. But those people aren't going to listen to that anyway. But the whole thing about it is they don't know. We don't know what Kurt's Card Care doesn't even say what is in it. We don't know what the long-term effects are. So obviously you can't just say, yeah, it's okay to do. Like you said, if there's a scratch, you're not filling in that scratch and making it go away without putting something on the card. Like how you can claim that it's not altering when you're putting something on it or taking something away from it to get rid of that. Like that is the definition of altering. But he makes a very good point. But I guess my point is, to the kind of people that think it should be okay, they don't care about good points. They just want it to be that way because they want to be able to get 10s, right?
I want a reality show of Kurt from Kurt's Card Care and Evan Mathis just hanging out talking cards. I really want to see that because could you imagine the amount of cards that they could clean and alter and really get all those nice looking 10s. He made the point, we don't know what stuff does, stains could come back. The guarantee thing, we have a financial obligation because of our guarantee. Well, they're charging you $50 extra a month for the membership, so maybe they can put some of that money towards that guarantee. This is he talked about the smell and the residue that it could leave, and that's how they detect it. Couple of things that he mentioned. One, he said he did talk to the dealer about the Wemby card, the 1-on-1 that really kind of set this whole thing on fire. And the dealer said, we didn't use, now, okay, believe what you want to believe with the dealer.
Right.
The dealer said, no, we didn't use anything with Kurt's Card Care. They didn't detect anything. A lot of people were confused that was the owner. No, that was not the owner of the card. The owner of the card looked very confused. If you watch the video, looked very confused when the guy gave Kurt's Card Care a shout out. I don't think the owner, I watched an interview with him. I don't think he knew if it was used, which it might have been. I don't think the owner actually knew if it was used or not. The other point that actually kind of made me nervous, quote unquote, if they get comfortable enough with the cleaning, they could revisit it. That's something that I like. Right now, we don't know what this stuff does. If we get comfortable, to me, that really feels like they are opening it up just in case. And that's something that people who are these minions for Kurt's Card Care can hold on to and be like,
they're going to jump on that.
Yeah. They're going to jump on that and say, oh, maybe down the road, PSA is going to be okay with it.
And
I didn't like that.
He also said that they're working on better ways to detect it too.
Yeah.
And like said about some of it leaves a smell, and then there was other stuff he didn't want to get into. So whether or not that's true, or he's just trying to do that to scare them. I don't think anything's going to scare people, because we've all determined that people are going to decide, well, it's worth the risk. So
yeah,
I don't think.
Yeah, Mike, you said reasonable people at the beginning, like saying reasonable people won't X, Y, or Z, but there are so few reasonable people in the hobby right now, I think. And I was thinking about this on my way home from work one of the nights this past week. Like, will we get to a point, do you guys think, where people are just going to say in their eBay description, Kurt's Card Care was used on this card, what was used on this, and a lot of people are going to be okay with that? Do we think we get to that point, or do you think that people try to continue to obscure that like they have been?
I don't think people will say it.
Never.
I don't
because it could cut off a potential buyer. Yeah. Right. So there is a segment of the hobby. I still don't believe they're true collectors, but there is a segment of the hobby that seems seemingly okay with it. Like Northeast Ohio Cards and Comics seemingly is okay with it. So from my view of that, he would buy a card knowing it was cleaned using Kurt's Card Care. Correct me if I'm wrong. He has commented before. Neo, correct me if I'm wrong if that is not the case. You as a collector are fine with a card that's been cleaned by Kurt's Card Care. There is a large segment of the folks that collect that wouldn't feel good about that. I don't think the three of us, if we knowingly knew that card was cleaned and altered by Kurt's Card Care, that we would go in and buy it, right? Yep. So we wouldn't do that. So if you announce it on eBay, sure, you're going to get those people like Northeast Ohio who is totally cool with it, but then you're going to cut off the potential of folks like us who might bid on that card thinking that it wasn't altered, if that makes sense.
What percentage do you think of the people in the hobby or would be okay with it? And what are the age ranges?
As end user collectors, people
buying on eBay. That just people buying the cards on eBay. How many people? What percentage do you think of the people in the hobby would be okay with it? And then what is the 50%. Age range?
I think it's close to 50-50. Yeah,
I think 50-50 for me
seems
too.
like it. Yeah,
but I bet it skews a lot younger, right? Probably skews toward the people that just got into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, I'll skip a little more toward the end there. The PSA talked about they would be starting to grade a new kind of item soon, but Ryan Hogue was very non-committal to what it was. He was keeping it secretive. So I thought it'd be fun to guess what you think it might be. I don't know what else there is out there to do. I think video games. That's my
video games for me too. Yep.
Okay.
Comic books.
Sure. Comic books.
That was the first thing I thought.
Very possible too. Yeah. Wow, that'd be huge, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, PSA grading comic books. I mean, it's a huge market. They have relationships with eBay, a huge comic book dealer. Maybe they could get into the comic book authentication part of eBay that we talked about a little bit on the pod. No one does that right now. So I could seriously see them. Who grades video games now? Is it like a subsegment of Beckett or CGC?
I'm not sure.
I think it might be CGC, but yeah, So, I mean, or all of the above, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think you might be right. Comics would be a much bigger audience, like a bigger market to enter into. So, like that kind
I
of
think
feels like I feel like they're kind of a company that would do something big, especially if he doesn't want to talk about it. Like if
right.
they were going to do video games, I don't think he would be as guarded about it as comics, because I think comics is way bigger news.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
But I want to know, like, Mike, you haven't talked very much this episode. Why do you think video games? What was your pick? Video games. If I have anything to add, I'll add it. But tell me why you thought.
Just because I think that's a growing segment of the collectibles market. Like, it's kind of like a comic book. It's silly because if you grade it, then you can't play it, but you can't read the comic. But I mean, personally, I have no interest in graded video games, but I know that is growing. So, like, I wasn't even thinking comics because I guess I wasn't thinking that big. I think maybe too because Geoff had talked about like Funko Pops and stuff during the interview. Maybe that's why I was thinking like something more like video games. But after hearing Joe say comics, I think that makes way more sense. So. Yeah.
And to me, it's like the whole guarded thing. Like, I think you're right. I don't think he would have been as guarded something like video games, which, yes, we just had to ask the question, who does do video games right now? I think it's CGC. So it's not as big of a market, but man, that would be a shot across the bow, not just to CGC, but also Beckett, who is the CBCS, who is the secondary grader for comic books. That would be a huge shot.
Yeah, I agree 100% that the comics is probably the call. Video games, like for me, like the original Gold Legend of Zelda NES game, like that'd be really cool to have that and have that sealed and graded. That'd be kind of a cool piece for me to have. But I couldn't see myself having a large collection of them. But I do know it's growing, and that's why I kind of thought my mind immediately thought went to that one because of I feel like that's kind of one of the markets that's on the rise. So.
Yeah, and I'm not super familiar with that market. I'm not part of it, so it may be way bigger than I realize. Yeah. So I don't really know. I'm just not. I love video games. I love the older video games, but when it comes to like, I know older video games are worth money, but like I don't understand like how collectible they are. So the one last thing then I want to bring up was they're talking about going back to the blue label on the PSA DNA for the autographs, which, we talked about on the podcast a couple months ago before they made the announcement they were doing this. Like, why don't they do that? Because we talked about, the custom cards that are on there and people getting that autograph 10 grade, and a lot of new collectors being confused, thinking the card that is in there is a real card and that the card is graded a 10. So they are going back. But the real big news out of this is he said they are finally going to stop encapsulating fake cards that are, they'll do reprints like the Topps reprints. If a company can actually do a legal reprint, they'll do that, but they're not going to allow fakes, and they're not going to encapsulate custom cards anymore. So they're going to take a lot of that, like the naive collector that may not understand that, oh, look at that patch card there, that somebody made that. It's not a real card. There's so much confusion. I applaud them for doing that, because I know when we discuss this, we're like, why do they even allow it? They shouldn't allow it. So I do give them props for realizing that there's a huge problem out there that they created by switching to the other labels and continuing to put this stuff out there. Although I do worry about the stuff that's already encapsulated. Like, we're always going to have that problem with that stuff that's already been done. Like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, as Joe Day likes to say. I think I got that right, didn't I?
You did get it right. And the folks that would argue that this are probably and I get your point, but the folks that would argue that like full-throatedly probably would also argue, well, what are you going to do about all these cards that have been altered that are in slabs? At some point, you just have to draw the line. In the words of the immortal Patrick Stewart, the line must be drawn here, no further. So, yeah, they are doing a good job of doing that. But you're right, Mike. They gave us the disease, and now they're selling us a cure. I mean, they created this problem, and now they're gonna try and fix it. What they should do is still authenticate the autographs but do it like they do with like a mini helmet or something. Put a sticker on that fake card, like still send them in. That way people can see that this is a legitimate autograph, but in no way, shape, or form should it be in a slab. I don't care what color the label is. It shouldn't be in a slab, because just it being in a slab with that PSA lighthouse is going to confuse way too many people, especially new collectors, and they will be taken advantage of, because if one thing's consistent on the show, we tell you all the time, you have to be a vigilant buyer, and people are going to try and screw you out of your money at all points. So just be, safe and secure in what you're purchasing.
Yeah, Joe, I agree 100%. It's great that I realize that I'm glad they realize it's a problem. But I don't think just a blue label, and I like just calling it PSA DNA also, like that. I think the label and the slab are so similar to an actual card that I'm glad they're getting rid of the custom cards, because that is super easy. Even with the blue label, that's going to be super easy to pull a fast one on people that aren't paying attention. So yeah, I feel like there needs to be more, maybe a sticker. That I feel like they need to change their label and their slab, maybe not the slab, but their label, or something even more than just a blue label and just saying PSA DNA than just what they're doing now. I think it's still too similar. And I really, even if, for things that are just PSA DNA as opposed to a card, I really think they need to make it more different than just a blue label and just the different words.
And that's what I was saying about the stickers, because if you get like a jersey, and I have a couple I had sold recently, if you have a jersey that has the PSA, it's a PSA DNA sticker. It has a certain number that goes to a whole different other thing than, looking up a card, right? So if you have that and you get a little, 3x5 card or whatever, tells you what it is and tells you what the certain number is. Like if you're going to look out for auto fakes and you want to do something in that sphere, that's great, but that's how you have to do it. You can't put it in any piece of plastic that anyone could misconstrue.
I'm okay with the plastic, but you just change your label, add the sticker to the front of the label. Like do something that makes it really stand out, other than the different color. I don't think is going to really change the needle for a lot of people. I think like do something almost drastic with that slab. Then I'm okay with the slab. I don't mind it being in the slab, but just make sure it is obvious that this is not a card, like a regular graded card, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, there you go. I think we'll wrap it up there. We probably saved you like 15, 20 minutes from watching the actual whole interview. And we give you all the highlights plus our expert analysis. And really, we don't charge you anything for that. No membership fee, nothing. So
I thought we were raising our membership rates. What? Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
That announcement hasn't been made yet, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
All right, guys. That was a good time. And I'll see you next week. Take care, guys.
See you, boys.
See you.